Okay, so I am recording this meeting and I am here. Miss Baker, the elementary assistant principal, is here. Mr. Newberry, the middle school assistant principal, is on here. Miss Savage, our school counselor, and I believe Mr. Stamolis, our director of Greek studies, is also here. So we had a couple of people submit some questions, and so we're going to go through the questions and provide you answers. Again, not only are we recording the session, but we will also provide the slideshow for everybody when we're finished. So one of the big questions is about 8th grade graduation. And so just like many of the other grades, we are going to do something special for everyone to be able to end the year, but we are going to work on a carpool commencement. It's actually, we're not working on it. They're already in the works doing it right now. And the students will be announced and the cars will go through a carpool parade. As you'll see here, some of the details: families are encouraged to decorate their cars. All staff will be along the sidewalks or along the outside of the school. Families will pick up transcripts, report cards, t-shirts, awards, and then after the outside carpool parade, and anything that was left in the building would also be given to the students at this time. There will be a Zoom later that evening, and there will be speakers, and it'll be just like a ceremony that would have been held in the school, but it'll be a virtual commencement. As far as 5th grade bridging ceremony, we are going to have a ceremony in August. As you all know, we are a K through 8 school, and so we would love to have a welcoming in August to celebrate those 5th graders coming to the middle school as opposed to ending 5th grade. So that is the plan, and more information about that will come. Supplies and report cards. So we just talked about 8th grade and 5th grade, and we have a full week where we are going to do grade level by grade level, another carpool parade, where all the teachers will be lining the sidewalks, and we will make sure that anything that students have that needs to be turned in would be able to turn it in, and anything that was left in the classrooms, the teachers will have already cleaned out because they're coming the weeks before to work in their classrooms. And as I'm sure you guys can understand, it's a staggered entry because we cannot have too many people in the building at once, and we definitely don't want to put their health in jeopardy. So they're going to be packing up their rooms and getting anything that was left in the classrooms. And then when we do this carpool parade, the teachers will line again, cars will come through, and you'll be able to, your children and you will be able to see your teachers, wave to them. You'll receive report cards and anything that may have been in the building as far as supplies, and then you can drop off anything that needs to be dropped off as well. And you'll get a schedule for that. And what we've done is we've scheduled a couple hour blocks for each grade level. So there'll be plenty of time. All right, do grades still count? I have Miss Baker is going to talk about elementary, and I'm going to actually change the slide so I can share something else. And then Mr. Newberry is going to talk about middle school grades.
Good morning. The State Board of Education, and that's the state board, not the Socrates board, gave us some direction on grading. It was very specific, and the focus is on supporting student progress for elementary and communicating feedback to students and families rather than assigning grades. So what we are doing, we have created a 4th quarter feedback form that everyone will receive. And there are various components on the form. The first part is whether the student participated in distance learning consistently. And of course, we know this is a very different time for everybody, so we're not looking for 100% attendance, but we are looking for consistent attendance. And then the teachers will make a comment on the standards that they showed mastery on in 4th quarter, standards that they did not show mastery on. And then if it's a student that needs intervention next year, that also will be noted. And this form will go up with them to the next grade so that the teacher can pick up where the last teacher left off. Mr. Newberry will talk about middle school.
For the middle school grades, we're going to be taking the average of quarters 1 through 3, and that will be their final average. We're also going to use this, and the language ELA and the math departments have already been meeting to discuss placement of students into honors classes for next year, since we will have an advanced ELA class as well as the different levels for math. And then quarter 4 is graded for student mastery, so that will help us to program instruction for the following year.
All right, another question that we've had is about reading camp this summer. So reading camp at Socrates Academy has been funded through the Read to Achieve grant that comes from the state, and that's for kindergarten through 3rd grade students. That funding is no longer available, and we're still, not we, but everybody is still unsure of what the summer is going to allow as far as people gathering in spaces. So we will not be having Read to Achieve summer camp. However, we are looking for ways that we can provide remote instruction for students who may not show proficiency in reading or math at this time. And we're still working on that, but we will be sure to share out when we have more information about how that can be done. This question, my child's going to high school, how are they going to get their transcript? Again, that is going to come through the graduation commencement carpool celebration, and we'll make sure they have a transcript in that folder and a report card, and Georgia's working on that, so she'll make sure that all high schools get what they need. Somebody heard there was a possibility of an early start for the next school year. When will this be communicated? First of all, we have to get that information from the state. The state has very strict guidelines on when the start of school can be and when the end of school can be. At this time, we don't know. But if the school is to start a little bit earlier, the only rumors that I've heard are potentially August 17th at the earliest. But again, those are rumors that are happening right now. The state is working on that. And again, as soon as we find out, we'll be sure to let all parents know. But at this time, our school year is starting when we made that calendar, and that's on our school website under calendars for 2020-2021. When are we receiving after-school refunds? Mrs. Kress and Mrs. Kenley are working on that, and you should get them within the next couple of weeks, but definitely before the end of May. And you'll get those in checks to your mailbox. I haven't completed my volunteer hours. What should I do? First of all, please don't worry. This year absolutely had some unexpected challenges, and everybody's going to have a fresh start. Nobody's going to be penalized for not having volunteer hours. And we're actually discussing a potential carryover of volunteer hours, because we don't want you to feel that any of the volunteerism that you did this year has gone wasted. So we're still in the works on doing something like that, but we greatly appreciate all the volunteering that you have already done, and please do not worry. Is there an update on the summer trip to Greece? Great question. So we're going to have a meeting on Monday at 7 p.m. There's going to be an email that goes specifically out to those parents tonight with the details of that Zoom session. So if you are a parent whose child was scheduled to go to Greece, make sure to check your email tonight with the Zoom information, because we need to have a discussion with all of the parents before that is finalized. And Ms. Savage, would you like to talk about this slide, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So a question came in from a parent of a kindergarten student who was a little bit worried that their child might be losing all the social skills that they were gaining while they were at school. And what I want to say about this is that students absolutely practice social skills with their peers at school, and it's a totally different dynamic. But they learn those foundational skills at home through just everyday things. And even though you may think that you're not teaching those things, you are. I think that a couple of months of being at home, and I understand that it would be concerning for a kindergarten student or especially an only child if they don't have other children around. But I don't think that a couple of months at home or however long this is going to last, is going to set them back that much. I think children are a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. But there are opportunities to teach and model important social skills every day. The foundational social skills for younger students are things like following directions, using manners, having a positive attitude, good hygiene, and we're doing that right now. I'm sure everyone is washing their hands like crazy. But we can also teach those through different kinds of play. Simon Says is a great way to teach following directions. Jenga is a great way to teach and model patience. You can, one of my favorite things to do is mute the TV and try to guess how the characters are feeling on this show. And that's a great way to learn about nonverbal communication. You can say, hey, why don't you draw a picture of you and your friend sharing a toy? What does that look like? So there's so many ways we can just incorporate this. And it's really what we do every day. I think sometimes we don't think we're doing it, but we absolutely are. So I just don't want anyone to worry about that. And also Zoom meetings with your friends and all the other creative ways I've seen people are staying in touch with others during this time. If anyone has any specific questions about this or any other social, emotional thing, please feel free to reach out to me. I know I spoke a little bit more about younger students, but in any grade, I am here for whatever you need.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. So at this time, I've seen a couple of questions pop up on the chat box that you can type them in, but does anybody have a question that they would like to ask that would benefit our parents? And again, I just want to mention this is recorded, so if people hopped on late, which I see we are up to 66 participants, so this is being recorded, and the slideshow will also be sent out with the recording. So if you have something you want to type in, you can type it in, or feel free to ask.
I have a question about students that are transitioning to high school. Will they still receive credit hours for the Greek language if they pass the courses?
Good question. So as Mr. Newberry shared with the grading, for high school credits for Greek classes, again, they needed to receive a C or higher. And what we're doing is we're averaging Q1, Q2, and Q3, and that will be the grade average for those high school level Greek classes. We also have high school level Spanish for the 8th graders with the 7th and 8th grade combined, and Chinese. And then of course, Math 1, Math 2, Math 3 this year. They'll receive their high school credits if they receive that C or higher score. So absolutely that will be on their transcript. And when you receive a report card or a transcript, if there are any problems, just please contact Mr. Newberry or myself, and we'll make sure that we get that worked out for you. I see somebody typed a question about medicine. Mrs. Caggiano will make sure that we work with families who need to receive medicine as we're doing that grade level drive-through pickup, or potentially schedule something privately if it's a little bit more than what we need. But we'll definitely make sure we get that medicine back to parents. Thanks for asking that.
Quick question on the lunches. Will the funds be available next year for lunches that we paid that we didn't have since school closed?
I need to write that question down and ask Mrs. Ingram. I'm sure she will be working on a way to get funding back to the parents. So I need to write that down and ask her specifically. I do not know that answer. Good question.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Good morning. I know you mentioned that students will do a carpool style the week of June 1st to pick up supplies. I had typed in a question earlier in the week as far as picking up supplies now, somehow to help with this distant learning, having our workbooks at home, having our agendas. When we're having to print a lot of things at home, it makes it a little difficult, and especially with a lot of the PowerPoints that the teachers are doing that are in lots of color, if they can become a little bit more basic, you know, we try to alter the printer so that it prints in black and white. However, when there's a lot of extra background pictures or images, it's extra things, you know, that's being printed.
Yeah,
so
I really
make it easier for our kids to have like their workbooks at home so that, you know, the teachers can say, okay, today pages, you know, whatever,
right.
5 through 10.
Yes. Yeah, I understand that. And we, that was a challenge when we had to make this decision at the time that we did. So specifically speaking about the printing, so Ms. Baker and I have been working with the elementary teachers to try to reduce the amount of worksheets, because that is definitely not something that we expected from parents, to have to use a printer to be printing out their own worksheets. And so the new synchronous sessions that have been happening the past couple of weeks are very interactive, so that it reduces the amount of anything that we would expect a family to be printing at home. Especially you know, doing something different, like when the students are learning that there's a notebook next to them as opposed to a worksheet. Ms. Baker, do you want to speak any more to the worksheets and the printouts?
Yes, especially for elementary, we really have been working with teachers on not having anything that requires a printout. We actually did a professional development on this a couple weeks ago. So if you're still seeing that, if you'll just speak to the teacher or let me know, and we can definitely work on that.
So we will not be coming anytime soon then to pick up our workbooks or any other supplies.
Due to we're honoring the governor's stay-at-home order, and so we will not have teachers return to the building to get that organized until the governor has ended that order.
So if with his restrictions, you know, with his stay-at-home order being until May 8th, afterwards, is that a possibility where the teachers could go in safely and pack up our things, and like you mentioned, maybe doing this like a carpool style and having designated times for us to come through and pick up our things? Because it is a challenge to constantly be on and trying to, you know, go from one screen to the next. And again, it's without our materials, it does make it a little challenging.
As Ms. Brighton said, we do have that plan, but we have to honor how many teachers we can have in a building at the time, and so that will be coming in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
By the way we have to have our teachers come in, one thing I want to share is, you know, we have 97 staff members at Socrates Academy, and then we have 4 buildings. And so the way that we are scheduling the teachers to come in, you know, they're going to need to wear masks. First of all, we're scheduling them so they're spread out in the hallways. Like we only have one person in every hallway. It's taking a lot of time for us to get the teachers all in there to be able to dedicate that time to their room. So by the time, if we were to do something like this right now, by the time they do it, you'd be circling back around to come get report cards. And it's just, at this time, it's not feasible. You know, it's just, it was unexpected. And that's one of the things that Ms. Kylan has been working really hard with the teachers on, is working on, for instance, doing interactive it's a PDF, fillable PDF, so that kids on the computer could do the worksheet in the computer as opposed to a printout, or like, for instance, the workbooks. Now, everybody will get them when we do the drive-through, but the teachers start coming in a week to do a staggered clean out of rooms, and it's just, you know, it wouldn't be fair to one who gets to be the first teacher who comes as opposed to the one who has to wait 3 weeks. But this is all because we're staggering when people come. So thank you for your questions. Ms. Osmond, I saw you had your hand up. Go ahead. Ms. Osmond, I don't know if you're muted. I saw your hand up.
Yep, sorry, I was.
Go ahead.
two questions. The girls are asking about yearbooks. They want
Yes.
to know if y'all can answer something about that. And then also for the departing 8th graders that we're planning on taking Elenomathia at the end of this year, what is the game plan for them as they enter high school? Is there going to be any additional support over the summer to keep them up to speed so that they can do well on the exam? Any kind of answers you can provide about this would be really helpful.
Okay, so first I'll start with the yearbooks. Mrs. Susie is working on those yearbooks. Ms. Baker is typing some information. Everybody's going to get one. If we can get them by the carpool drive-through, everybody will get them in drive-through. If we're unable to get them, yes, we plan to get them mailed to people, especially the 8th graders who would not be returning. As far as the Elenomathia, that's another question I'm going to write down so we can work on very specifics, so I can give you more specific answers about that test. Obviously, the test isn't happening this year, but we will we'll see how we can provide supports to those students who graduated and who were planning on taking it this year, but were unable to at Socrates. So,
Ms. Brighton, there's a lot of questions coming in about volunteer hours. Can you recap what you said earlier in the presentation for those who may have missed it?
oh, sure. So, the volunteer hours, that was a slide back in the presentation, and we cannot, there's nothing we can do right now with volunteer hours. So first, we want to thank you for everything that you've put in. And we don't want anybody to feel that their volunteer hours were, going to waste. We are talking about a carryover for next year to potentially carry over some volunteer hours because, again, we know that everybody was not able to fulfill them this year, and there's no way that you can right now. So don't worry about volunteer hours, and please don't feel like they were wasted by any stretch of the means, because everything that you do to contribute to the school helps the teachers tremendously, the students, and the whole community. So again, please, we cannot finish volunteer hours. We still look for 100% participation, but we're now going to need to just look forward to the upcoming school year as opposed to this school year with volunteer hours. I think I saw a couple of other hands up.
There was another question about the in the chat as to whether the last day of school will still be on June 9th.
We don't know that yet. We are working with the curriculum committee about that. As of right now, the state said that learning and instructional days is to follow your current calendar. That's what the state released, is that our current calendar is what's in effect, but that will also be something I can answer more confidently in a week or so. I see there's a question about honors recommendations. Typically those come in the report card, and when the report card comes, there'll be a letter that's talking about whether or not a student is recommended for an advanced class in our middle school. As far as 8th graders going into high school, usually the students are told to ask for recommendation letters from their current teachers. So I know a lot of 8th grade teachers have been writing recommendations for rising high schoolers. So make sure to contact your student's homeroom teacher about, or whatever teacher, if it's math or ELA, so we can get those recommendation letters out for rising high schoolers. And I see there's a question about school for rising kindergartners, not only for rising kindergartners, but truly rising everybody. We are learning what school is going to look like in the city of Matthews for the upcoming school year. Come August. First of all, what's the start date going to be? What's school going to look like? Because if you read about, or even watch news about other countries that are reopening up, what that looks like. So we know it's going to be a little bit different, but we are working on all of that. Again, it's still day by day with this pandemic, But as far as rising kindergartners, we do have a group, an email group for students who are new to the school, rising kindergartners, and we'll be emailing throughout the summer any details, and an email, you know, coming out soon just to welcome you again and just give you some tidbits. But it's not a typical summer, and it's going to be a different start to the school year, probably than what we're used to, but we don't have the details just yet. I'm trying to look at some of these questions on the chat. Is there anybody who had a question who wanted to unmute and ask?
There is one that was asking about school starting early, if the state has decided.
We don't know if the school is starting early just yet.
Someone has their hand raised, Ms. Braden. I don't know if you've already answered that question.
I can't see that.
Hi, I hand raised and I have one question about EOGs. My son is in the third grade this year, and he having first time EOG, and this time I know the EOGs are not there, but I want to know, you can take the EOGs, just a sample for them, like how's it going to, because next year again, the fourth grader, they have to give the higher level EOGs. So if you have a last year paper, so you can give them and at least solve them and just to take a practice of that.
Sure, great question. So one thing that we're working on with the curriculum committee is what we can do to, first of all, start the students off in a way in August that they feel prepared. And just like you said, in third grade, it would have been their first opportunity to take that end of grade test, and they didn't receive that opportunity. But we also have assessments like MAP, the NWEA MAP, which is a similar format where the students are reading on the computer and selecting multiple choice answers. And we also participate in what's called NC check-ins, which is a chunked version of the EOG, where some of the standards are offered at the beginning of the year, more of the standards are assessed in the middle of the year, and then more assessed at the end of the year. And so those are opportunities that we're looking for, and especially for those rising fourth graders, those students who just finished third grade, so that we make sure, first of all, that they have fulfilled one of the read to achieve requirements because they did not have an opportunity to take that EOG. And we want to make sure that we start early intervention for anybody who might need that, who were struggling with the reading. But that's something that we're looking at for all the grades, but yes, especially those students who are leaving third grade and going on to fourth grade, how we can prepare them at the beginning of the year and practice so that when they take that fourth grade, which you're right is more, it's more challenging just with any grade level, we'll be working on that and make sure they get the practice.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. I see a question about doing the map from home, the NWEA map from home. We are looking into that. We don't know yet. And I see a question about Zoom. Oh, sorry, more questions came in and it bumped down. If there is a particular topic, and I believe this is a middle school, so I would suggest you reach out to Mr. Newberry specifically about the subject area so that he can work with the teachers to provide additional supports with Zoom lessons through the distance learning, because we definitely want to make sure that we're providing instruction and support for any student, all of our students.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia had already established a process for getting information to CATA for those students that had put in an application. Will that continue as she had already designed?
It sure will. She is, she will be spending some time at the school to make sure that she gets everything to the high schools ahead of time that might need to, as well as, you know, we will also give you a transcript when you come through the carpool commencement. I see that somebody's also asking, can we confirm that there are no EOGs? Yes, there are no, that is correct. There are no EOGs this school year.
Sure.
All right. And if no one else has any additional questions, again, like I said, this was recorded, so we'll be sending out this recording. We will also make sure we send out the slideshow. Any questions that were asked, like for instance, there was a question about the Alinomathia, specific details for that, I'll get that out. There were also specific questions about medication. We'll make sure we get that out. And I know there were a couple other questions, and Vanessa and Ms. Baker and Mr. Newberry are taking notes, so and Ms. Savage, so that we can make sure that any question that I was unable to answer today will get answers to those. And we really appreciate everybody joining today. We know this has been challenging, and we're working through everything, but keep contacting us, keep contacting your teachers, because we want to, this is unique for everybody. Everybody's family's in a different situation, and we want to do the best that we can to support you and your family and help the kids to keep learning, because we want to try to get those kids where they would be at the end of the school year. And that is some new learning, and we are making sure that all of the learning in every grade level is being provided through the distance learning, through the remote instruction, through the Zooms and those synchronous sessions where the students log on, so that in August our students are as close to where they should be in August, so that teachers who are in the upcoming grade are not reteaching skills from the previous grade. But we are absolutely aware that there's going to be some review and some really solid interventions put in place for this. And we know the school year is probably going to look a little bit different with the gathering of people in spaces and the number of people in a room. So we're prepared, and we're ready, and we're planning, and we're listening to what the state has to say and what other countries are doing. So we're working on that. We do not know if what the plan is for next year yet, because we're still waiting to know what is the directive from the governor for the state of North Carolina. As of this moment, we start when we originally planned, but we know that there will be, you know, different things that we need to do as far as sanitizing on a regular basis. You know, how lunches are going to look, how recess is going to look. So it's going to be different, but we're going to do our best to make it feel good for the kids and to help them keep learning. So thank you again for joining us. And I'm going to stop this recording, and as I shared with you, we will share it out. So have a lovely weekend and happy Friday. It's a beautiful day out.